Hi, everybody. I'm Josh Bauman, and I work for Electronic Arts. And we're going to be talking about committed resources. So first, a little bit about Electronic Arts and why this is important for us. We're a video game company. We inspire the world to play, and so you'll see a lot of our different games that we make here. FIFA, Madden, college football, hopefully coming back very soon. Formula One, Apex. We even have mobile games like Star Wars, Galaxy of Heroes out there. So huge space. Our revenue last year, if you're looking at the snapshot of what our revenue last year was, about $7 billion. And if you go back, our company's 40 years old. And if you go back 10 years ago, the way people bought and played video games was off of a disc. That's no longer the case anymore. Disc is pretty much dead. You have PlayStations coming out that don't even have a spot for a DVD anymore. So how do people consume video games now? Well, one of the ways that they consume video games that we track is something called live services. And of the $7 billion that we made last year in revenue, $5 billion of it was from live services. So more and more of our revenue is coming from digital sources, not from packaged goods sources. Same time, then it takes a lot of resources to support those things that are online as well. And I'm not going to give you the exact number. That's not something that we publicly disclose for our infrastructure costs. But if you look at our 10K statements, our cost of revenue, our COGS for last year was $2 billion. And that includes things like royalties and warehousing, et cetera. But you can imagine a large portion of this spend is on our infrastructure. So this is a big deal for us, making sure that we do committed resources. Okay, second, a little bit about myself there to give you guys some background. So I own strategy and operations within our infrastructure optimization group. This is part of the overall infrastructure group that sits inside the CTO organization. That's how we're set up. We're horizontally focused, which is one of the reasons I like my job. I'm an idea connector, and my team is an idea connector. And what we do is we'll take ideas from one area of the business and shift those over to another area of the business. Very similar to the Fidelity talk that you saw right before this one. We're in a hub and spoke model as well. So taking that idea from maybe the finance group to over the FIFA group for how they're doing clouds, we're the ones that are a lot of the glue coming into that organization. Secondly, with that, I like to consider myself a super node, which is why I'm in the horizontal function and kind of why I like being part of the FinOps organization as it is as well, too. If you have ideas, you better have people to connect them to. So I'm always trying to make contacts within the business, understanding who's doing what, et cetera, from that perspective. Ultimately, I'm just trying to make things better. We're trying to make things better as an organization and really trying to enhance our ability in cloud. Okay, what kind of skills do you need to be in this main group? I'm going to give you a little bit of background on myself, and I think it takes 3 different things to really be a good FinOps practitioner going forward. FinOps wasn't invented 10 years ago. You can't go to school for it quite yet. We're trying to make that happen, obviously, but everybody in this room didn't go for that. So I think it takes technical language, analytical mindset, and the ability to sell your ideas in order to make a good FinOps practitioner from a centralized perspective. So I'm going to kind of take you through my journey a little bit and how I got there. And maybe this will help with skills and what we're trying to find in talent within our org, and how it's been able to make me successful in implementing the committed usage discount strategy that we have at EA. So first, I started off at Trinity University. My major there was computer science with a minor in mathematics as well. So to me, and we're here in Austin, Texas, we're home of the taco, right? So I don't give myself gold stars, I give myself tacos here. And it's actually an inside thing with our team as well. And our Slack channels, if you do something good, you get a taco as your emoticon on there. So if you get lots of tacos, you're doing well at EA. So that's how we do that. Having that technical information of a comp sci undergrad really helps me in that space. The mathematics minor gave me that analytical mindset. So I started to lay the baseline here of what we're able to look for and to make us successful in our careers. Second, my first job out of school was at Rackspace. It was an interesting time. I graduated at the dot-com bubble burst, and I actually never coded outside of school. Rackspace, I ended up selling dedicated servers leasing them. If anybody's ever bought from Rackspace, you buy the whole server. I was one of those people selling you those servers back then. Being a salesperson, that obviously sold your ideas, but also helped me on the technical aptitude side of things of understanding more about compute, network, storage, et cetera, right? After Rackspace, I then went to a small company here in Texas called Schlitterbahn. It's a water park company. It's about fun, which is part of the reason I like working at EA. Have a little bit of background in working for companies that are fun. Schlitterbahn, I was working in the commercial real estate development area, working directly for the owner and putting together business plans for how we were going to acquire land, make public deals for money, and ultimately building new parks around the country. So again, that helped with both analytical mindset and selling your ideas. At Schlitterbahn, I didn't have a business background, but I was out there trying to create deals and get money and things like that. So I was like, okay, well, maybe I need to go back to school a little bit. I really like that sort of thing. So I went to school here in town, Hookham, right, for University of Texas, and got my MBA. That gave me the formality of the business background, which really then helps finalize my foundation there from an analytical mindset. While I was in school, I also worked for a company called Thrivent Financial, which is in the, much like Fidelity and Transamerica and a lot of other companies in the mutual funds and 401k business. I worked as a financial advisor selling those insurance and retirement plans to folks as well, too. That completed my selling my ideas area there. And then finally, click, there's a taco. Finally, I went over to EA. And at EA, I started in the IT business, in the IT side of things, the corporate IT section, being their finance partner. So I come from a background of finance and the IT side of things. That kind of gave me the full gamut here of, hopefully I was prepared for what I was getting into. This was back a few years ago. So now that starts my journey into about 2016 when we started out. In this area, I just moved over to the CTO organization and taken over what was called the business operations team at the time because FinOps didn't exist. We had just lost our cloud analyst, our very first cloud analyst that we had in the company. He's actually here today. He's upstairs. He's started a startup now, so you can go visit him at some point, but he's still in the industry today. But that had an opportunity for our team because we were now stepping into a space that we didn't understand up to that point. The other thing that came out of that was this was right when convertible RIs were introduced by AWS. And that gave us an opportunity. Before, they were doing trade-ins of standard RIs, and you know, that's a little bit of a struggle to do with your stuff there. But trying to have some sort of flexibility, convertible RIs actually helped you open up that a lot more going forward. And I consider this our walk stage here that you see up there on the top right. What we were able to do out of that is I put together a plan using our analytical mindset, our technical acumen, and our ability to sell things. And I said, okay, our coverage isn't great today. I think we can move our coverage up on our EC2 usage. Let's bring that up from 30 to 70%. That involved taking that information up to the CTO and explaining what an RI is, right? Like we all talked about, I think. Not everybody in our corporate ladders are going to understand the financial complexities of some of these tools. So we were able to do that from a CTO perspective. We also had to take it up to the CFO as well, because we were making a significant financial investment for the company and explaining, hey, hold on, yes, we're going to make a good investment here, but it's going to save you 5x what we're doing today as well. And both having that business sense of understanding what the ramifications were helped from that perspective. Finally, selling my ideas, I was able to take that up to those folks and actually get us to make the purchase. This still limited our risk that we had, and this is a running theme through the presentation here, is you want to be able to still limit your risk whenever you're making these sorts of investments. And also, we were still able to maintain our flexibility. The new product that came out, it really helped with that from a convertible RI perspective, but it allowed us to trade in things and continuously find, you know, the vendor's going to go from a C3 to a C4 from that perspective, you're not stuck with that product for that period of time. So it allowed you to continue to maintain that flexibility. All right, that was 6 years ago. Fast forward about 3 years, now I'm going to take us into a little bit of an optimization phase from this perspective. The next thing that AWS came out with in this particular case was savings plans. And same thing here. How do we able to take advantage of this? Can we make those same connections to the CTO? Can we make those same connections to the CFO? We did. Great. Coverage increased, right? We went up above 90% from our coverage perspective, from an EC2 perspective. We're still limiting our risk because of the way the products are set up with savings plans, where there's more flexibility built into the product. However, internal flexibility went down. And the reason I say this is because of the way that you're billed for these things, coming from any of the cloud vendors. It's rather complex and rather random how everything is applied to your bill, whether it's a 1 year or a 3 year or an all upfront or a no upfront or an on demand. It can be a whole bunch of different prices. So how did we solve that, right? The way we solved that is we implemented a new chargeback solution, and we disaggregated from the way that our cloud vendor charged us to an internal methodology to give us more flexibility that matched the ability from a financial perspective. So it's kind of going into first what's on the native side of things. When you get the native cloud bill, right? If you purchase an RI in account, then it's applied, then you get that discount in that specific account. If you purchase an RI and that account doesn't use that RI, then it gets applied somewhere else in the organization. If two people use the exact same thing, I'm not exactly sure how it's prioritized, who gets the benefit, who doesn't get the benefit. Next come savings plans, right? And the highest discount then gets applied. And then what if two people have the same discount? I'm not exactly sure who gets the discount again. So how do you manage that from a forecast and a variance analysis perspective if you're not exactly sure what your charge is going to be based on the unit that you use? We've been doing this a while, and I'm not exactly sure if I even got this correctly from that perspective. I think this is how the internal tool works, but I'm not exactly sure. The other piece of this that we were running into ahead of this is incentive alignment. And we would have people come to us and say, we'd say, hey, we'd love to save you some money. Would you, commit to the usage? And sometimes if you get somebody that's risk averse, they'd be like, oh, no, I don't want to commit. You get somebody that wants to play the game and they want to spend as much money as possible. They say, yep, sign me up for that 3-year one because it gives me the biggest discount. Then they come back to you 3 months later and say, our plan's changed. Oh, I think that's happened before to a couple people in the room. And then you're stuck holding the bag saying, okay, what do I do with all these extra things lying around? Do I go assign them to somebody else? I wanted to get rid of that, and I didn't like the way it was coming in. I wanted more predictable usage for my end users, and I wanted to take away the risk-averse person for their ability to commit, and I wanted to take away the gambler that was throwing off my risk in the first place. My incentives weren't aligned. My flexibility was gone a little bit. I didn't even understand my bill. Okay, what's our solution? So what we implemented here was, if I can click, is we just said that we're going to charge you an internal rate. And I'm going to look at the on-demand price or the list price. And I don't care if you bought a 3-year. I don't care if you bought a 1 year. I don't care if you bought an all up front. I don't care if you bought a no up front, a partial up front. I don't care that we have a special negotiated discount on whatever it is, right, that you got a special deal or something, right? I don't care. Every instance is going to have the same amount of X% discount off of the on-demand price. And then I'm going to manage all the financial risk and margin on my side of things, whether that's up or down from that perspective. So now that gives me a whole bunch of things. First, I have a stable rate for my end users. They can now have predictability on what an hour of their cost is going to cost, no matter what, right? That's what it's going to be for the next 3, 6, 12 months whenever we reevaluate our internal rate perspective. But if you as an end user, you want to save some money, how about you turn some stuff off? If you want to spend some more, how about you go get some money, how about you go ask your financial partner for more budget? That way we're not playing this financial manipulation game of reserved or not reserved, or you putting me in a precarious position. I now get, second part here is I now centralize all of the committed discounts from an organization. So we're not quite as diverse as Fidelity on the last call where they have 1,000 accounts, but we have 500. So I don't want to manage 500 different savings plans or reserved instances or committed use discounts. I want to manage one and take the power of EA that you all saw at the very beginning that allows me to go get the best discount I can for everybody in the organization, not silo by silo. And now I own that from a fleet perspective. I don't own that in 200 different individual silos like I did before. And then finally, it quarantines the variability, right? This was from the forecast versus actuals variance analysis that I was talking about before. You could have almost a nearly infinite rate card before of having different rates for different types of commits or discounts or et cetera, right? And how many, could get applied every hour, different rate throughout the entire month. So who knows what your rate would have been. Now you have a steady rate, and so now you can really look at your variability only in one spot for what is your variance from a price perspective, and then every team is always managed on their usage instead. So this is my solution to where we were able to still maintain our flexibility even though we were caused by complication from a chargeback perspective. Lessons learned. So there's 3 lessons learned from what we've gone through over the last several years. You want to be able to maintain flexibility. There's going to be a new product out at some point. I don't know what it is. I don't even want to guess. And you can apply this again to things beyond. I talked about EC2 or VMs or GCE today, right, from that perspective. But you could also apply this to database or other products as well that offer a committed use discount from that perspective as well too. But I always want to maintain some flexibility because I think the future's, we're not settled as an industry, so I think we're going to continue to see opportunities for new products to come up. So I don't want to get stuck into something that I'm stuck for the next 3 years on. Second, it's all about building consensus internally. It's about the education, right? I think we're hearing a lot about it this week from a FinOps perspective. As it goes beyond everybody at this conference, it goes to educating our finance partners. It goes to educating our CTO suite. It goes to educating our business units from that perspective. But I want to go build consensus within the organization for what we want to go do, and that's going to pay off in spades further down the line. And then finally, holistic price management. We all are bigger, the sum of the whole is bigger than the parts. So we're all in big companies. We're all, well, not all of us, I understand that. I'm in a company where I have enough critical mass that I can take advantage of that to where I don't have to have it split up by account in the structures that give us that visibility. I don't want to maintain my risk in the same level of the visibility that I have. So anything that I can aim towards having holistic price management is something that I want to look into. And with that, I think I talked a little bit about the future already here of where I'm going with this stuff. I want to look for new products. I want to look for continuous price management for other tools beyond my compute, and looking for more flexibility in options out there. I don't think I've got it solved all the way on what the best product is, so that's why I'm here to learn to see if we have other solutions out there that may be even taking us a step further. And with that, I think we're at Q&A.
Hold on, Zach.
Joe, we got a couple, we got here and then here, I think, and then in the back.
Do you include Spot in that matrix of costs, or you separate Spot out totally by itself?
Spot separated completely out by itself, and there's 2 reasons for that. One, we're talking just AWS at this point, right? I don't have an answer for you on whether I would do on preemptible yet for Google. I'm not quite there yet, and I'm not there yet from an Azure perspective either. But from specifically AWS, there's 2 reasons why I don't include Spot. One, the engineer is making the concerted effort to actually go do something from an engineering perspective, and I want to reward that behavior. Second is more technical. Spot doesn't actually come in with a list price in the CUR today. So I technically couldn't do it because that column is blank, right? Because there is no real list price for Spot today. You're getting your whatever your cost is at that particular moment on the market or whatever. So 2 reasons, but I don't include Spot.
Awesome.
Oh, thanks. We at the corner here?
Corner, back, and then over here in the front.
I'll get my work out.
Thank you, Josh.
Yes.
Josh, what types of flexibilities do you build for? Architectural flexibility being one. What about financial flexibility? Is that something that you've taken into account in your planning?
Yeah, so flexibility from a financial perspective, what we're doing is we're trying to do on a monthly cadence how much purchases we're doing, right? We're trying to spread that out through the fiscal year for, basically like 1/12 every month roll off from that perspective of things. I don't want to buy, 100% of my need right now and then be locked in for the next 3 years. I think you may have follow-up. Yep, go ahead.
We could talk later on as well, but there is a mechanism to do that with CRIs where you can spread them out longer and reduce your burn rate commitment as well.
Yep. This is one of those, and I had talked about this a little bit before. There's, as I was mentioning, I think I may be educated that there might be a better option to go beyond just having things expire on a monthly basis. So it's something I'm going to look into later as well. So.
My question is, you mentioned list price minus a discount that you kind of set across the board. Did you have savings below that? And if you did, what did you do with that?
Yes. So I'm very transparent with my finance organization, right? You want the finance partners to be on your side completely on this. And, hopefully lockstep in you with the partner from this perspective. I was very transparent and I said, with my finance, if I make it X, that's the real true percentage, right? This is going to get me about even. But if I have an unanticipated usage spike that my on-demand is going to raise my effective discount, that's going to cause pain on my side. Do we want that? And they're like, no, how about you make that a couple ticks lower there? And they said, okay. And then, so for the most part of the last 18 months, every month I've had savings on my side that I've got to redistribute. Now, what's interesting, and I didn't bring this up in the presentation, twice in the last 18 months, I've had usage spikes. We have games, they come out. So Battlefield 2042 came out last year. Apex Mobile came out just last month. Games are just like a movie. If you've seen Top Gun, right? Everybody goes and watches it the first weekend. And then it kind of just slowly goes from there. So my cloud bill goes up immediately when it first comes out, and then the next month it goes down. So in those cases where I have that use, and they're not even like unanticipated, but when I have usage spikes that I can't cover from a overall effective demand, I will charge them back a penalty for that particular month for them upsetting the balance of the rest of the organization.
Have you ever thought about breaking out the savings to be a credit rather than included in the total cost so that you could kind of separate engineering influence spend versus commitment type of spend?
I would have to think about that a lot more.
Essentially charge the on-demand cost equivalent and then have it be a credit, because in those spikes, you could actually almost turn it to a positive and say teams that maybe don't need to run on the weekdays or outside of peak areas, they could actually run. And so if they were then given the credit during the off-peak time, that the credit would actually be higher, and it might influence them to help with maybe some of those peaks and troughs.
So I'm going to pitch that I have a chalk talk tomorrow, and maybe we should actually do that on the whiteboard. Yeah. I think that's a brilliant idea. My first hesitation is my finance partners like predictability, and they're trying to hit a variance analysis, a variance plus or minus from that perspective. So surprises either way are hard, but I don't think that's actually answering your question. So I don't know that I'm getting quite to the crux of it yet.
The nice thing about it is you can actually give about a relative sum of savings every month that or every time that they'd see from a period perspective. So finance isn't impacted as much. I've played around with logic. I'd love to get your insight on it, because I think for me, it's just what I've thought of so far, but I'd love to figure out how I could maybe fact check and validate, because some of what you're talking about, I didn't take into account.
Sounds good. Yeah, no, I think there's a follow-up brainstorming session that we're going to do on that one. Joe, I think there's a couple more hands around.
I just went there because I was lazy.
So in your slides, crawl and walk, you said you took limited risk. In which departments you took limited risk? What are the limited risks you took it?
Yes. Okay. So EA as a company, I was talking about how we have spiky usage. Right? Our cloud usage is not up and to the right. Every time we have a launch, that goes up, right? We also, our games are becoming more and more of an online service over time. So you can do subscription, you can do free-to-play models, et cetera, right? So our usage is getting more and more spiky over time. We also haven't solved a lot of the optimization issues, taking notes from the Fidelity conversation just right before this from a KPI perspective. We still have opportunity for optimization along that. So I don't want to reward bad behavior by bringing down the price either. So there are times when we had an example last Thursday, a team decided to right size. If we look back to the word cloud this morning from JR's presentation, one of the words that got a little bit of play in there was the word yelling. The other word was beer, right, that we saw in those things. But there are unanticipated times when you're going to have drops in usage. And I don't want to have RI or savings plans or CUD waste, because that's throwing good money after bad sort of thing. So I want to maintain that flexibility of getting as much savings as I possibly can right now without putting myself at risk that somebody's going to turn some stuff off and I'm stuck there leaving the bag of doing prepaid commitments that I'm not using at all. So that's the risk externally I'm talking about from that perspective.
We have a lot of questions, but we don't have a lot of time. So it sounds like tomorrow there's going to be a chalk talk of Josh and Allie drawing out a new chargeback model.
Do you know when that
Apparently, I think we had that computer glitch. It is.
Steve, do you know when
I can look it up.
Yeah, we're looking it up. 2:30?
Oh, I think it's earlier than that. I think it's 11.
2 o'clock? 11? 11? 2 o'clock?
11 o'clock at Ballroom.
11 a.m.
Windows side Ballroom. I don't know where that is.
I don't know. All right, we'll find out tomorrow. All right, now, for all y'all who have been in this room before, you all know how I feel about Ballroom C and their weak claps. So you're a great audience. Josh was a great speaker. Let's give it up.
Thank you.
JR here from the FinOps Foundation. Thank you for watching. Please go to FinOps.org if you want to get plugged into this amazing community. And of course, hit subscribe right here on YouTube to get all the future content. Hope to see you soon.